Now hey guys, welcome back to the channel and another Swiss 001 video. And what kind of plane do we have right in front of us? Yes, this is the Concorde, obviously. The plane that we all know and love. Yeah, this plane was the fastest passenger plane that we ever had. Yeah, speed is this plane's pretty much only strength. We're flying at a speed of 1.8 Mach right now. Yeah, this plane can even go faster at a little bit over 2 Mach. Which, by the way, is 2 times the sound of speed. Just, by the way, 2 times the speed of sound, which is no problem for this plane, apparently. Yeah, this plane is pretty much one of the most legendary aircraft that there has ever been. It's incredibly complex to fly as well. I mean, also here in the flight simulator, everything is incredibly realistic. Secondary air doors. I don't know what those are. Oh, I think those might have actually turned off the engines. Yep, actually, this is quite a scary plane to fly. Honestly, I don't know what this does. Okay, let's just ignore all this. As of right now, this plane does fly here, which is good. Yeah, so just some dates. This plane, it came out in 1969, quite a while ago, and it was retired in 2003, or at least that's when it made its last flight. Which was also quite a while ago. Yes, indeed, it was retired even though the whole world loved this plane, and it still does, actually. But it kind of makes sense that this plane was retired. It didn't make a lot of money. I mean, at all. Yes, airlines were not profiting from this plane. It was not incredibly comfortable either. I've already been in a real Concorde. The windows are extremely small, by the way. But, you know, the seats are extremely cramped. You can actually barely stand up in the cabin. So, no, this plane, it was definitely not a comfortable plane there. Yeah, this plane, it had incredible weaknesses. Again, it was not very efficient to fly, not economic at all, and it could only fly across oceans because this plane was incredibly loud on the ground as well. Which, by the way, was, of course, due to its incredible speed. You know, when you fly supersonic, that makes an incredibly loud sound, especially at the ground. And yeah, 2003, that was basically the end of supersonic travel. Or was it? No, it wasn't. Yes, the first time I've talked about this was in February this year, actually 8 months ago already. And of course, I was talking about the infamous aircraft manufacturer of Boom, which is probably not that good of a name actually for an aircraft manufacturer, but you know, each of their own. Yeah, I was talking about their plane, the Overture. As you can tell already, this plane, it looks incredibly familiar, and that is because it does look like the Concorde, pretty much exactly. Yeah, welcome aboard the modern Concorde, pretty much. Yeah, this is also called the Boom Overture, as you can see down here. Now, the word overture comes from the French vocabulary and it basically means opening. It's not actually that interesting, I don't know. Again, it looks incredibly close to the Concorde. Basically, it features the same design language. That definitely has stayed the same over the years. We still have a delta wing, of course, but instead of 4 engines, we have 2 engines now, which I guess allows for a more efficient flight. We have way bigger windows, which makes the plane look very, very much smaller than the Concorde, even though it definitely isn't. That is interesting as well, but pretty much other than that, from the outside, on the first glance, this plane basically is a newer version of a Concorde. Oh wait, I've actually forgot. This plane does have 3 engines actually, one in the tail, which is definitely different from the Concorde. Now the cockpit here, I mean, this is not a very realistic, simulation just yet. I mean, this plane has not even come out in real life. This is really just a concept by now, so it only features cockpit elements that are really needed for just flying around this plane. The seats are missing. Oh, interesting note here. Thank you for downloading this aircraft. Oh, they actually added a QR code for donating. That is actually something I've never seen before. Or maybe we can take a look inside of the cabin. No, we can't. Okay. Now, let's actually already talk dates. When is this plane expected to ever fly for passengers, actually? And you may now think like 20, 30 years, but no. This plane is supposed to happen this century, maybe 2029, but somewhat after 2025. Now this plane obviously is supposed to be a lot more efficient than the Concorde, a lot quieter as well. As you can tell, it doesn't have any afterburners that will make this plane incredibly loud. Especially here in the cockpit and on the outside as well, this plane, it seems incredibly quiet, but these engines, they do deliver a lot of power. Alright, let's put the gear up and actually, go a little faster. Now let's talk a few more numbers. Now this plane is supposed to be almost 2 times more efficient than the Concorde. You know, an efficiency of a plane is measured in liters or gallons per kilometer or mile per passenger, which is a very interesting number indeed. Now the Concorde had an efficiency rate of 16.7 liters per 100 kilometers per passenger, while the boom plane only has around 10 liters per 100 kilometers per passenger. That is, again, a very interesting number indeed, which actually means that this plane is incredibly more efficient, especially considering that this one only seats half the passengers of the Concorde. This is actually only a 55 passenger plane, whereas the Concorde seated around 100. Actually, that makes a lot of sense because instead of 4 seats per row, this plane features only 2 seats per row, which actually is very much more comfortable, obviously. And what that all basically means is that this plane is cheaper to fly as a passenger as well. A London to New York ticket, for example, on this plane may only cost $2,500, which obviously is still a lot. That's a little bit more than you would pay on a normal business class ticket. But on this plane, this flight only takes around 3 hours instead of like 8 or 7, so there's definitely improvement here. We have to consider that the Concorde was incredibly expensive compared to this one. Around $12,000 is what you would pay for a ticket at least. Obviously, it depends, but you know, the Concorde was really not cheap to fly, whereas the Overture plane is quite a bit cheaper. But now let's actually go ahead and get to that flying speed that we want. All right, we are flying at 50,000 feet. Let's engage the autopilot. By the way, this autopilot panel is straight up stolen from the 777. Yet this is not how the Overture plane cockpit is going to look like. Now our speed right now is 1.1 Mach, which is slightly slower than the Concorde used to fly, but we are still flying faster than the speed of sound, which is incredible, actually. I mean, just imagine how fast that actually is. We are quite quick. This plane, it already has quite a lot of potential customers. Yes, we've already had 30 pre-orders, which doesn't sound like a lot, but this plane, even though it is incredibly revolutionary, it is not incredibly expensive. Yes, unit of this one is expected to cost only $200 million, which obviously is a very much lot of money, but compare that to something like the 777X or something, which will cost twice as that. Alright, but now we're actually moving faster. This plane's top speed is 2.2 Mach, similar to the Concorde, so that's all good. Yet the United States Air Force is actually considering making this plane the next Air Force One, you know, the plane that carries around the president, which is very interesting indeed. Now, ever since my last video in February, quite a few updates have come in about this plane. And actually, there has been very big news recently on the 7th of October, because there's kind of a prototype of this plane actually doing its first flight very soon. Yeah, the XB-1 plane has been recently rolled out. Yeah, also called the Baby Boom. Yeah, the XB-1 Baby Boom basically is the Overture plane, but it's only 1/3 of the size of the Overture, you know, just for testing purposes, obviously. Again, that is kind of a prototype of this one. So yes, we are definitely moving forward. Actually, I didn't expect that there would be any updates this year after, you know, the COVID-19 thing in March. It's interesting how we lived a normal life in February 2020. So yes, indeed, the future of supersonic travel is looking very much bright. Maybe in 10 years we can fly across the oceans at Mach 2.2, just like we did 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, or even 16 years ago. Let's go ahead and get this plane landed. Oh, this is not going to be a smooth one, let me just tell you that. Oh. That landing has failed. This should obviously not be an accurate representation of a normal Overture flight, of course. So yeah guys, thank you for watching today's video, and I'll see you tomorrow as always. Good night.